Now let's talk about what characteristics distinguish a saddle that's good for cutting. Right here is a brand new cutting saddle. Again, the pocket is 2/3 of the way back. That's the lowest part of the seat. You got a little build up in front of the cantle, a little build up behind the swells. Puts you right in the middle of that seat so you can sit that stop. The cantle is fairly low. I believe this is a 3-inch cantle. It's got a nice angle to it. Here again, on a cutting saddle, you want the stirrup leathers hung extremely far forward. I mean, you know, cutting horses a lot of times just stop so abruptly. And I mean, you've got to be in the right position if you're going to maintain your balance. And the cutting saddle has a little bit taller tree and a little bit taller horn than, you know, a reining saddle or a trail riding saddle or something like that. And when we're on that cutting horse, again, we want to be riding on the cheeks of our butt, lower back, slightly rounded, shoulders directly over our hips. Now, when a cutting horse is stopping really abruptly, we want to have the purpose of the taller front end. I believe this is a 9-inch front end on this saddle. The purpose of the taller front end is to allow you to push on the horn to keep your shoulders balanced over your hips. If you're riding it in a really low front end, it's going to have a tendency to let your shoulders fall forward on those hard, abrupt stops. Okay, that's why the cutting saddle has a little bit taller front end. And as a general rule, most cutting saddles are going to have between an 8-inch front end and a 9-inch front end. They're also going to have a 4-inch horn with a little bit of forward angle to it, so it makes it comfortable to hold on to. And again, the horn is for pushing on, not for pulling. If you pull on it, you're going to pull yourself right out of balance. Okay? Here again, this saddle has a in-skirt rigging in a 7/8 position, which is what I personally like, because the in-skirt rigging, there's no bulk. It makes it lets your legs travel without any bulkiness under them. I really like it. Now, a regular rigging is fine also. Just make sure if you order a saddle with a regular rigging, you have a dropped rigging, which means the D is going to be hanging below the skirt. Okay, that's going to give you a lower pull. It's going to be more comfortable for the horse, and it's going to pull that tree down more even on that horse's back. Here again, we've got a nice design to the skirts. I really like this design. The main thing about a cutting and reining saddle is that you want fairly thin leather. You don't want that real thick, heavy leather for 2 reasons. Number one, it adds a lot of weight to the saddle. You know, I don't like a heavy saddle. I'm sure the horse doesn't either. But the main reason is for flexibility and feel. I want thin leather that's flexible so that I can be close to my horse and move my legs the way I need to move them. All right, that pretty much wraps it up for what we look for in a cutting saddle. Let's move on to the next phase, which is the saddle tree. The saddle tree is the most important thing in the saddle, especially for the horse's comfort and soundness. And a lot of people, they feel that there's nothing they can do about the saddle tree because they don't know what to look for. I mean, the saddle tree is hidden, you can't see it. But I'll give you a few things that you can kind of spot when you're shopping for a saddle. The first thing you want to do is pay attention to the angle of the bars, okay? Right here, right here. When the saddle's on the horse, the angle of these bars should fit the angle of the horse's body, okay? If the horse is real narrow and the angle is real wide, that's going to cause a lot of pressure on either side of his withers, and it's going to cause him to go sore. And by the same token, if you've got a really wide horse and the angle of these bars is real narrow, same thing, it's going to soar him up, okay? Now, a lot of people think that on a really wide horse, you just get some more width to the gullet and that's going to do it. And that's not the case. The angle of the bars have to be angled out more to match that angle of that wider horse. Otherwise, it's just not going to be comfortable for him. Now, the next thing you want to pay attention to is the surface area of the tree, where it actually meets the horse's back. The surface area needs to be flat. You need to have as much surface area on that horse's back as possible. The greater the surface area, the less the pressure is on that horse's back. And what happens is most saddle trees are manufactured or designed to, the surface area is rounded, like the curve of a baseball. Well, when it's rounded like that, in this area right here, that means the pressure area is real small, okay? When you see those dry spots on your horse's back, that doesn't necessarily mean that the tree doesn't fit your horse's back. A lot of times it just means that the surface area is just too small and it's creating too big of a pressure point. So I want the surface area of the tree as flat as possible to get the greatest amount of surface area that I can, both front and back, okay? Now, the other thing to pay attention to, you notice, you look at the front of this saddle, and the front of it is kind of curving out. You see it's got a funnel effect, it's opening up in the front. And that's to allow room for the horse's shoulders, the movement of the horse's shoulder blade, his scapula. And without that, it's pretty darn uncomfortable for the horse. Ideally, that flaring out, the opening up of the front of the tree should start way back here at the end of that travel where the scapula is going to go, okay? Scapula goes forward and back, and we need to kind of be opened up in that whole area, okay? What a lot of trees have is the flare of the front starts right here. It doesn't go back far enough, and so it's almost like, you know, a moot point. It doesn't do any good if it's only flared, you know, the first few inches. It actually needs to start way back here. Okay, well that wraps it up for our video on how to choose a reining saddle and a cutting saddle. You know, the big problem with trying to find a good saddle is finding one that's designed right. And if you do happen to find one, you know, they're usually priced at $4,000, $5,000. And you know, they're pretty darn expensive. I've been lucky enough to find a saddle maker that I've been working with this past year, and we've got a saddle, he's come up with a saddle that is designed right, meets my specifications, my criteria, and he's able to do it at a price that's really, really affordable. So if you'd like more information on that, go to my website, you know, go to the web page that I have listed here and check it out. It's a good saddle, designed the way it needs to be designed at a price that's really affordable.